Hello BookTube, today is Tag Tuesday, and for the first tag I'm going to be doing in 2022, I'm going to be doing the 10 biggest books tag created by Mayberry Book Club, who did his video earlier today, and I'll leave a link to his original video in the show notes down below. I'm going to probably append a kind of a quotation or a parentheses at the in the title as or in the show notes as basically being as of January 2022, because looking at the biggest books I have in my collection, particularly the top 10, I'm not happy. There are no history. The longest histories I have, and there are a number of them, they pretty much go into the mid-900s. There's the Grant biography, which is 1,000 plus. Hopefully at some point I will be getting the biography of Maria Teresa, which is 1,100, although I haven't gotten it yet. And there's in panic mode about that. But anyway, let's get on to the 10 biggest books I have in my collection as of this moment, which is January of 2022. Coming in at number 10, and I have absolutely no idea why I have this book, is Night Angel by Brent. This is an omnibus edition of the complete Night Angel trilogy, of which I read the first book, or I tried the first book ages ago, and bailed within a chapter or two. I didn't like it, and for whatever odd reason, I saw this omnibus edition at Golden's Book Exchange years ago and wanted it. Probably, I think, because I wanted to have another go at the series, and I've never gotten around to it. Annoying, I know. Next up is, well, the next two, 9 and 8, are Brandon Sanderson. First up, or number 9, is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in his Stormlight Archive series. And I've tried this book 3 times, and I have bailed each time within 100 pages. I don't like it. It's bloated. It's probably, at the end of the day, the entirety of this Stormlight Archive probably could just have been told in this one big book. And there's going to be 10 of them. Yeah. So, number 8 is, of course, the sequel, Words of Radiance, which I haven't read yet, because I haven't read the first book. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Number 7 is a book that I kind of have liked, even though I haven't actually read the entirety of it, and that is The Faerie Queene by Edmund Spenser. I've read the first book, or I read like the first canto of the first book in English Lit 1, and then I read the whole of the first book about the Red Cross Knight for a Renaissance lit class that I really enjoyed, and that got me wanting the entirety of the Faerie Queene, which I picked up a year or two later, and it's been 15 years and I haven't read it. Coming in at number 6 is The Stand by Stephen King. This is a contemporary-ish post-apocalyptic or apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic epic fantasy novel set in the United States of the near present, near future. It's about a bioengineered virus that escapes the military and wipes out 99% of the population, and the survivors are then recruited into a battle of good versus evil as two magical people, or one who has prophetic powers, and one who's basically an evil sorcerer, kind of recreate two societies around themselves and basically go to war. I kind of sort of like The Stand, or at least parts of it. I mean, it is like nearly 1,500 pages, so it is incredibly bloated, and probably could have used a good 400 or 500 pages to have been cut, even more. But I think in a way it does have a sort of inspirational value, in that as a writer of fantasy myself, I am more interested in writing one and dones, standalones. I'm not really that interested in writing a series, particularly of novels. I mean, there's an exception for like comics, but as far as novels are concerned, I really much prefer standalones. And yeah, so my thought with The Stand was, how do I write like a big one-volume fantasy? Whether or not Stephen King's the best example, yeah. I don't particularly like Stephen King, I think, most of the time. I do like The Gunslinger, the first short story in The Gunslinger, or The Dark Tower, the first volume of the Dark Tower series, which is a short story collection that's been strung together to look like a novel. I like some of the stories in that one. The Gunslinger, the first story in the collection, most of all. I haven't gotten to any of the other books yet. I've also read It, which again probably could have stood a good 400 or 500 pages being cut, and Christine, which the movie is far better than the book. Anyway, moving on to number 4. That is the big book of science fiction edited by Anne and Jeff Vandermeer. This is a big anthology that looks at science fiction from its origins in the pulps to the present, or near present when this anthology came out. It also looks back to its antecedents, as well as a more global approach. I read this for New World's November, in November, and you could follow along in my weekly reads. I didn't exactly get on with this book. There were a lot of great stories here, a lot of not so great ones, as far as I think. So, yeah. But yeah, this is one of the biggest books I have in my collection. Next up, number 3, is another anthology. It's my undergraduate literary criticism textbook, The Critical Tradition by David H. Richter. This massive tome is divided into 2 parts. The first part is literary criticism from the ancient Greeks to the 19th century. And then starting with the 20th century, the book basically breaks down into schools: formalism, reader response, Marxism, feminist, post-colonial, new historicist, psychoanalytic. I think, I don't remember if it had a queer theory included. Or, let me see here. It's been forever since I read this, or looked at it. Oh yes, Gender Studies and Queer Theory, which probably includes... No, it doesn't. Okay. So yeah, Gender Studies and Queer Theory are on its own. And then post-colonial. So yeah, I enjoyed a lot of the essays in this collection. I mean, obviously I haven't read all of it. So yeah. We will be returning to literary critical anthologies in a moment. But first, you can't have a big book in your collection without him, William Shakespeare. This is my complete works of Shakespeare, edited by David Bevington. It clocks in at, ignoring all of the appendixes, which is probably another 100, 200 pages, at 1,706 pages. So this has all of Shakespeare. I first bought this edition for a Shakespeare class I took at St. Edward's, and then also used it for the Renaissance class, because I think we read a few Shakespeare plays for that as well. And I've had it ever since. I do rarely read this, though. I'm not the biggest Shakespeare fan. I actually think he's a bit overrated. I know that's blasphemy coming from an English lit major, but Shakespeare's really never done it for me. So. And finally, the biggest book in my collection. It's another English lit or a critical anthology, and that is the Norton Anthology of Theory and Criticism. This one clocks in at nearly 1,000 more pages than Shakespeare. 2624. So yes, this is massive. This anthology I picked up for a graduate theory class when I was briefly in grad school. And this anthology is basically organized chronologically. Although there are, after the primary table of contents, there's alternative ones that do break down the essays into sort of schools and other organizational patterns. So anyway, I looked at this occasionally. I know I mentioned in the Mooks and Gripe book bucket list tag from a few months ago that I did want to read all of one of those two or both of those anthologies at some point. Not necessarily because I think I would enjoy it. Sometimes literary criticism and literary theory can be quite interesting. A lot of the time, most of the time, it's a massive slog. And I think it's more the accomplishment of it rather than any actual pleasure. So I don't know if I'm ever actually going to embark on trying to read them. But anyway, so looking at the 10 biggest books in my collection, I kind of want to kick out most of them. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is not necessarily a very positive or book tag, but yeah, I mean, it does kind of give me a kick in the keister to want to start to kind of prune my collection, to purge, some of the books that I really don't want anymore. So anyway, BookTube, that was the 10 biggest books in my collection as of January 2022. I'll be back maybe tomorrow with another video, I don't know. But until then, BookTube, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.